In the blink of an eye, pro football can be transformed in weird and wondrous ways. Within the well-structured universe of this popular sport, there exists a dimension where fantasy dissolves into reality.
Myra straight back to pass. Looking. Now stops, throws, completes it to Kilmer up at the 30-yard line. Kilmer driving for the first down, loses the football. It's picked up by Jim Marshall, who's running the wrong way. Marshall is running the wrong way.
Bradshaw running out of the pocket, looking for somebody to throw to, fires it downfield, and there's a collision. It's caught out of the air. The ball is pulled in by Franco Harris. Harris is going for a touchdown for Pittsburgh.
Sometimes pro football is like the Bermuda Triangle. Strange and unexpected things happen that can't be explained.
Pizarchik can just fall on the football, and Pizarchik fumbles the football. It's picked up by Herman Edwards. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. 15, 10, 5, touchdown Eagles. I do not believe what has occurred here, ladies and gentlemen. I do not believe what has occurred here, ladies and gentlemen.
During my film career, I've unleashed the Tingler and unearthed the tomb of Ligeia. I've devised the flight plans for the Raven and the Fly, and designed the floor plans for the House of Wax. Strange tales indeed, and yet every one of them was the product of some screenwriter's feverish imagination. But the tales that I'll be introducing during the course of this program are also strange. But these stories didn't originate from the realm of fiction. They belong to the province of fact. For the next hour, I'll be your guide on a journey that will extend far beyond the beaten track of pro football. We'll explore bizarre terrain, where trails have been cleared by snowplows and refrigerators, where wrong-way runs are the accepted mode of travel, and where road signs have been etched by the hand of fate. The first leg of our journey brings us to that fine line that exists between becoming a hero and winding up at zero. We're about to cross that line, just like the characters in the opening chapter of Strange But True Football Stories.
Heroes possess iron will and steely nerve, but some have also revealed feet of clay. Although number 70 Jim Marshall ascended the heights of heroism, he took a detour through the murky depths of missed opportunity. At San Francisco in 1964, the Vikings defensive end began the game in heroic fashion by forcing a fumble that teammate Carl Eller returned for a touchdown. But while Marshall demonstrated a keen sense of how to disrupt an opponent, his sense of direction wasn't so sharp.
Myra straight back to pass. Looking. Now stops, throws, completes it to Kilmer up at the 30-yard line. Kilmer driving for the first down, loses the football. It's picked up by Jim Marshall, who's running the wrong way. Marshall is running the wrong way, and he's running it into the end zone the wrong way. Thinks he scored a touchdown. He has scored a safety.
He came running down the sideline, and he was just jumping up and down, full of joy. And I was the first one to greet him. And I was so disheartened and disappointed, and here's my friend Marshall coming down the sideline full of glee. I said, Jim, you ran the wrong way.
After that occurred and the game went on, it was like the fans were not in tune with what was happening on the field. There was a sound in that stadium that I've never heard before or maybe ever hear again. It was like we were in a hive of bees because everybody was talking and they were kind of chuckling, and this noise went on for 15 minutes after this occurred, and it was so unusual.
Jim Marshall wasn't the only NFL great who blundered before he blossomed. The legendary storybook career of Colts quarterback Johnny Unitas contains a peculiar prologue. When Unitas threw his very first pro pass at Chicago's Wrigley Field in 1956, he looked more like a lug than a legend. Johnny U's initial toss was transformed into an instant touchdown by the Bears' J.C. Caroline. During Baltimore's 58-27 loss, Unitas didn't throw many of the downfield bombs for which he would become famous. But in another bizarre twist to his NFL debut, he did throw a downfield block for Lenny Moore. The last pass, thrown by Dallas's Roger Staubach, provided an odd epilogue to his imposing myth. In a 1979 playoff defeat, the Miracle Man, famous for engineering cowboy comebacks, delivered his final toss to chunky guard Herbert Scott, who wasn't even an eligible receiver on the play. A hail of yellow flags, rather than a blaze of glory, thus signaled the end for one of the game's most gallant competitors. In the haze of a humid Miami morning, Don Shula's 1972 Dolphins were about to embark on a historic campaign. Among those participating in the searing summer workout was a rookie named Larry Ball, number 51. The 1972 Dolphins boasted a deep pool of talent that never ran dry, and Ball got into the swim of things by proving his mettle on Miami's aggressive kick coverage unit. As a linebacker, Ball perhaps was the least known name on the renowned no-name defense, and others produced the big plays that enabled Miami to make history. A triumph in Super Bowl VII gave the Dolphins the only undefeated, untied season in modern NFL annals. Basking in the rarefied air of perfection was a heady experience for a young rookie.
I didn't know how to react after a game for almost a year and a half because the Dolphins didn't lose in my first year, 17-0, and I kept waiting to see how pro players would react when they lost.
In 1976, as a member of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Ball would never know how to react to a win. Number 53 is about to be reflected in the perverse mirror image of history.
I went into it optimistic. I had others tell me we wouldn't win too many. I even had Pat Toomey tell me we wouldn't win any, which unfortunately he was right. We ended up 0-14. The year just seemed to drag so much longer, week after week. You just ask yourself, how did you lose that one? You know, when are we going to get the one break? When is the ball going to bounce the right way, or the call going to go the right way, or are we just going to execute?
Ball became the only NFL player to experience a season without victory, as well as a season without defeat.
I was an average ball player. I was very, very fortunate to be a part of the Dolphins, and sometimes I think I was fortunate to also be the part of the Bucs. It's helped me. I know I can go no lower than that, but I know I learned things from it.
The bottom of the pile and the top of the heap. From these two distinct vantage points, it is possible to see pro football from the same strange but true perspective.
They say that life is lonely at the top, and very often life is also loony at the top. For the demands placed on authority figures can induce certain personality quirks which one might term a trifle odd. Winston Churchill, for example, insisted that his bed sheets be changed 3 times a day, while Lyndon Johnson occasionally held top-level policy meetings in the White House men's room. The job of NFL head coach is a rigorous, pressure-packed position, one in which a passion for winning can blur the distinctions between intensity and eccentricity.
The Chicago Cardinals of the 1950s rarely won, but they never failed to entertain. The fabric of their play was frayed and torn, for they were cut from the same odd cloth as their head coach, Joe Steidar.
He had a very unique way of paying us. He'd bring in a fistful of brown envelopes which contained our paychecks. And he would have seen the game films, and he would write a little note on each player about his performance in the previous game, such things as, "I always thought you had no guts, and now after watching the film, it's confirmed." And I remember once we had to play the Bears the last game of the season, and he came storming in the door of the dressing room, threw the checks across the dressing room. They scattered all over the floor. He told us to fight for our own checks, and he says, "If you guys don't beat the Bears next week, I'm not paying any of you. I'm finding you a game salary." Well, that's the only game we won that year. We beat the Bears at Wrigley Field 24-10.
In the rousing, firehouse style of play that characterized the decade, the Cardinals were a 5-alarm fire, torching defenses with all kinds of bizarre plays. Even though the team was player poor, management decided to rid itself of the one man so rich with talent.
The Cardinals traded Ollie Matson to the Los Angeles Rams for 11 ball players. Of the 11, 9 had to be classified as garbage. Absolute garbage. I think 6 or 7 of them never showed up because they were real dogs.
While Matson left town with a broken heart, Dan Devine broke into Green Bay with a bang in 1971. In his first game as head coach of the Packers, Devine spent most of opening day deftly avoiding sideline collisions with various members of the New York Giants. Devine congratulated himself for dodging the bullet, but in this game of Russian roulette, there was still 1 round left in the chamber. On a freak play, Devine broke his leg and became the first coach in modern times to suffer an injury during a football game. Carted off on his shield like a Roman general, Devine's first campaign seemed over before it began. Devine returned to coach the Packers the next week, but more hurtful to him than his broken leg was the pain of a losing season. Pain and losing were 2 things absolutely not tolerated by the Redskins' George Allen.
In one of our meetings, he came in and said that he wanted to win very badly and he was going to prove a point. He'd been taking some karate lessons, and he brought in these 2 guys in their gis, and they stood in front of the rooms with boards, and he was going to punch one board and turn and kick another board.
The boards that he had been breaking were kind of like spongy, and somebody's changed boards on him. And he got the group up, and he got in his best karate stance, and he whacked those boards. Naturally they didn't do anything, and his hands started bleeding.
I mean, everyone knew he was dying, and the tears, but he didn't stop talking. Everyone, to have something like that happen, and you would just grab your hand, and you would feel, and you would show the pain. But George really had control of himself, and he refused to do it. He created a situation to stimulate and motivate players.
What it's all about. Just remember this, 40 men together can't lose.
Every time you lose, you die a little bit. You die inside, a portion of you. Not all of your organs, maybe just your liver.
I would never allow myself to be in a position where we would only win 4 or 5 ball games. I would not allow it. I would just not allow it. There's no way that's going to happen. If you have to give blood, and all those guys have to donate their salary to the Salvation Army, that's the type of people you have to have. When we lost 1 in a row, I was excited. I was raring to go. I was on the switchboard operator. Have her do a better job. You give so much of yourself, you tear your guts out, that you don't feel like seeing anyone. When I was coaching, if we lost a game, I went home and ate rice pudding and raisins. I wouldn't accept a dinner at the White House.
Allen was single-minded, a jumble of nervous energy, idiosyncrasies, and obsessions, attentive to the smallest detail.
George used to run after every practice. I can remember the press waiting to talk to him, and the practice would end. We had long practices, very long practices, and he would start on his track that he had put in. He had his own asphalt track, and he would run along the trees that he had labeled as well, so that you knew that was a pine tree and an oak tree and a dead tree.
We went to play the Green Bay Packers in Green Bay, and George had this way about him that if you went to play in a stadium that we hadn't been to before, everybody would go, as soon as you landed on the airplane, you got on buses, and before you checked into the motel the day before the game, you'd ride to the stadium. And everybody was supposed to get off the bus and walk in and look at the stadium. Pulled up to the stadium, no one was there. It was on a Saturday afternoon. Wind was blowing, cold as the devil, and there was trash all over the front of the complex. And the first thing, George, see why they don't win? You see why they don't win? They can't even keep their facility clean.
Was there more madness than method to George Allen? In his 12 NFL seasons, he never had a losing record. Strange, but true. In pro football's strange but true dimension, the personality parade includes those who experienced odd transformations. A unique metamorphosis enabled Dallas defensive lineman Larry Cole, number 63, to reveal his star quality. Whenever the Cowboys conducted their heated rivalry with the Washington Redskins, Cole, always a steady team player, turned into a spectacular force of one. As a rookie in 1969, Cole scored touchdowns in 2 separate encounters with Washington. This rivalry brought out the beast and the best in Cole. In 1970, his 3rd touchdown against the Redskins provided further evidence that something astounding was taking shape.
The first 3 were consecutive, which is unbelievable just to think of that. By the 3rd time, it really was strange. And, by that time, it was kind of like, wait a minute, this isn't real, this isn't happening. The first one, it was like he's a rookie and he got a touchdown. It's like, gosh, great, we needed it and we got the touchdown. And the second was, wait a minute. And the third one was, you've got to be kidding. I remember Tom Landry just shaking his head. He said, I don't know what you're doing, but just keep doing it. And from that point, then everybody expected me to score. And then for that, it took me at least another, 11 years to get it back and doing it.
Kruzak has it. No blitz coming. He is hit. The ball is intercepted by Larry Cole. Here's the Cowboys defensive tackle with a touchdown. Larry Cole has done it again. 44 yards for the guy who has made a specialty of scoring against the Washington Redskins. Cole Bubber ends an 11-year drought. He hadn't scored against them since 1969.
When I got back to the press room, when I got up in my perch like I was king for a day, and the first question was, well, why hadn't you scored earlier? And I said, well, anybody can have an off decade.
Adrian Burke manifested 2 very distinct personalities during his pro football career. In 1954, the Philadelphia Eagles quarterback equaled an NFL record by throwing 7 touchdown passes in a single game. Burke eventually became an NFL official, a professional turnabout that propelled him toward a date with destiny. At Minnesota's Metropolitan Stadium in 1969, the Vikings' Joe Kapp also threw 7 scoring passes in a single game. Since that day, this remarkable record has neither been equaled nor surpassed. But what made Kapp's effort truly unusual was the makeup of the officiating crew. One of its members included a man who experienced a similar brush with history 15 years earlier. a man named Adrian Burke.
While Adrian Burke was a hero who became a bystander, our next tale is about a bystander who became a hero. The theme of the double is a staple of fantasy fiction, but as a matter of fact, there exists within all of us a hidden personality that waits to escape when a strange circumstance
Snowplow driver Mark Henderson, a convicted burglar employed at the stadium on a weekend work furlough program, rode to the rescue. In the process, he drove Don Shula crazy.
I should have somehow stopped the action, but I was bewildered. I really was bewildered about what was happening out there on the field in front of my eyes. And if I had it all to do over again, I would have run off the sideline and thrown myself in front of this tractor and prevented it from sweeping that place clean for the field goal kicker to kick the field goal through to beat us.
Henderson cleared a path for a field goal that gave the Patriots a 3-0 triumph, an outcome the Dolphins still regard with icy disdain.
That kind of thing should not occur as a result of somebody putting a snowplow run by a convict with a day off from prison.
Where else but in the nebulous nether region of pro football could a hired hand be transformed into a hard-driving hero?